Hi everybody, I'm Jim. Welcome to Song Tripping. Well, I'm sure if you've been in the vinyl community or CD community, you know that the Beatles Rubber Soul box set is coming out. I think it's coming out in October. Everyone knows what's on it. It's going to be remixed, etc., extra tracks, blah, blah, blah. I'm not so sure I'm going to buy that. I'm assuming it's going to be available for streaming, and I'll check it out before I would buy anything physical. But this inspired me to listen to my many different versions of Rubber Soul on vinyl and CD. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I binge listened over the last 2 days to something like 6 or 7 versions of this album. I have a Parlophone Rubber Soul original. This is, I think, a Philippines pressing. I have a US Capitol album. This is the purple label. It was probably released around 1978. I've got over my shoulder here the 2012 vinyl reissue based on the box set that came out in 2009. And then turning to the CDs, well, I have that 1987 CD version. I've got the box set version from 2009. And I have the US album CD version, which has mono and stereo. So I'm going to try to sort through all this, and we'll pick out some favorites. I'll just give you some subjective impressions of these different versions of Rubber Soul. Let's start with vinyl. And we'll start with the oldest copy. And I think, yeah, definitely the oldest copy. And that would be this Philippines pressing Parlophone. This is a little bit aged. It's no better than a VG quality in terms of noise and so forth, but it's really not bad. And this was like super enjoyable. It was a really good listen. Let's get one thing out of the way: the US versus the UK version of Rubber Soul. I think you got to go with the UK version. I feel like Drive My Car needs to lead off the album, and you absolutely need Nowhere Man on this album. So I much prefer the UK version of the album. There's nothing wrong with the other songs that they swapped, like for the US version, but come on, this is Rubber Soul. I mean, this is the basis of it all, and this sounds really, really good. Let's move to the over my shoulder, the 2012. I bought that new, and that's based on the 2009 remasters. And I will say about that version that the 2012 vinyl is the quietest of the vinyl I have. Really, really nice. Really, really nice pressing. That being said, I can't quite describe it, but I felt like the edges were like too rounded. Like the overall sound was just kind of too puffy or sort of hazy or something. I can't quite describe it. In a lot of ways, it's perfectly fine. And if that's the only version you have on vinyl, it's fine. But I do think I like that original Parlophone Philippines pressing. And then we go to the Capitol album. Remember, this is different song order. So, you know, you have, I've just seen a face, and there's no Nowhere Man, and they dropped one of the George songs, which is not good. And there's something else is different on this. Oh, It's Only Love on the leading off side too, which is an incredible song, but I just don't think it belongs on Rubber Soul. Okay, we'll just get that out of the way. I'm going to shut up about that. This purple label, Capitol, I think these came out around 1978. This sounded really, really nice. Really, really nice. And I think it's my favorite in terms of like the sound quality of the pressing and it's just the overall sonics. I really like this purple label Capitol. It's just a shame it's not the UK song list. But this just had so much presence, so much involvement. Really, 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 really good. I don't want to slag this Philippines pressing of the UK Parlophone. I wish I had a UK version. By the way, these are all stereo too. These are close, but I actually would probably give a little bit of the edge to this just for sound quality, the US Capitol. Let's turn now to CDs. Well, we'll start with the 1987 version. Now, if my research is correct, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I think this was kind of like a quasi-secret remix by George Martin. Like, he changed some things, he added a little bit of reverb, which I can't really detect. But maybe there's a little bit of a difference with the mix. Yeah, I'm not sure. My impressions, and I like some of these 1987 CDs, but this one is not my favorite. It's kind of like it feels kind of limp, like a wilted flower. There's no depth of soundstage to speak of. There's a little bit of digital glare, like you got in a lot of those 80s CDs. And it just sounds flat, sort of like three-dimensionally flat. So yeah, a bit of a disappointment. Then we'll turn to the 2009 edition, from which they based that vinyl edition, which again was not my favorite vinyl version, even though it's the favorite in the sense of like the quietness of the pressing, but in other respects, not my favorite. And yet this one trumps the vinyl, I think. This one has sounded really, really good. One key indicator for me as I'm going through this binge listening session is if I start singing along with the songs, I know it's a good version. Like that's a cue. That's a signal, that it's a sign that I am involved with the music, that I'm engaged. And I just start like kind of speaking back to the music. I'm singing along with it. That happened with the Capitol purple label. It happened to some degree with the Parlophone Philippines pressing. It didn't happen with this 1987 CD, but it did happen a lot with this 2009 remastered CD. And George Martin was still involved with this, right? Now, those of you who are Beatles experts, you can weigh in the comments. Did he base this version on his remix that he did in 1987, or did he go back to the original tapes from the 60s? It seems to me, well, I actually honestly don't know, but all I know is this sounds better than 1987, clearly. The bass is better, the drums are better, you can feel and hear the drums more prominently, things just pop better, it's a more well-rounded sound, and overall better listening experience. The curious thing is that how much I prefer the CD to that vinyl, which is based on this. A lot of the time when I do these comparison videos, listening sessions, I tend to prefer the vinyl, but in this case, I think the CD was better than that one. And then last but not least, we've got this Curiosity, this box set, the Beatles US albums, which really is nice packaging. I mean, they faithfully reproduce the original Capitol sleeves, even the inner sleeves. You got the rainbow labels. The cool thing about these, and I know people complain because they're not actually based on the original Capitol masters, but they're based on the 2009 remasters, from which, everything's kind of coming from this box set. But the cool thing about these is they include the mono and the stereo. So I don't have the mono box set in vinyl or CD, but I get most of the mono on these US albums. So every CD contains the mono version first and then the stereo. The stereo is essentially exactly the same as you're getting on this. So I focused on the mono, and the mono listen on this was really good. But I have to say, I think I prefer the stereo to the mono. I can't say why. Some songs fared really well on mono and some less so, but maybe it was because I was listening to all these stereo versions on vinyl and digital that my ears were too trained to listen for stereo. But yeah, I'm not sure where I stand on Rubber Soul as a mono album. I think it's certainly good. There's certain things that like came across, like certain things blend well, like, you know, like if it's a solo instrument or something, it's kind of nice. It seems to mesh better in mono, like that harpsichord or tack piano that George Martin is playing on In My Life seems to like blend better, be less intrusive than it is in stereo. But in a lot of ways, the stereo, even though it's just kind of crude separation, which they're probably going to try to fix in this remix that's coming out, um, I, I, I think that sort of benefits the album in a curious way, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway, what conclusions can we draw? Well, you know, these are just subjective opinions, and in a month I might have a different opinion about this. But I will have to say that in terms of the vinyl, it's really hard to say like one is the best, but I definitely think that 2012 vinyl, the only thing that's best about that is the quietness of the vinyl, and you know, it's just newer. You know, I bought it new and it sounds new. The overall winner, and just in terms of like involvement and sound quality, was the Capitol Purple label. It just really was a nice pressing. Really enjoyed it. But I have to go with this Parlophone because it has the, you know, the proper song order, the UK song order, and it really was a nice press. It's just not as clean. It's not even as clean as the Capitol, but it's still a good listenable copy, and I'm glad we have it. So it's really kind of like between these two for vinyl, but purely in terms of sound quality, not in terms of like song sequence or anything like that, I really like this Purple label Capitol. And then in terms of digital, we have a clear loser, and that would be the 1987. I was really disappointed with this listen. Just didn't do much for me. And the mono of the US albums was good, but not as good as I wanted it to be, I think. So I'm going to have to make the clear winner on digital the 2009 remaster. And remember, the stereo of this, if this follows the Capitol song order, but as far as I can tell, like these are identical in terms of the masters that they used. So you're getting most of this on the US Capitol, on the US albums box set, but you're also getting the mono. It's nice to have the mono. I'm glad I have that, and I'll keep listening to it. But I thought the stereo presentation, just listened to it about an hour ago, like this was the clear winner for me on the digital side. And so I guess if we have to like break it down to a top three, we've got the Parlophone vinyl. That's a Philippines pressing. Probably not the best pressing, but it was still really nice presentation. Was very pleased with this Capitol Purple label, and very, very pleased with this 2009 Rubber Soul. We will see if Giles Martin and his partner, I can't remember the other guy's name, we'll see if they can top it with the upcoming release. I will probably not buy the box. I mean, this stuff is a cash grab, and you know, I think a lot of this stuff is just going to be streamable. So if you want to listen to all the bonus tracks and stuff, I mean, eventually that stuff's going to show up on streaming, right? Right? I hope. But I wouldn't rule out, if I'm able to stream the album and I like what I hear with the remix, I try to keep an open mind. I'm not like the biggest fan of Giles Martin remixes, but maybe he'll knock this one out of the park, and we'll see. So I'm not going to rule out ordering like the single CD or like the double CD or the single album vinyl version of it when it comes out, but we'll just have to see. Anyway, all of these were, you know, even the least I think of the vinyl versus CD, the overall worst was this 1987. It was even worse than that 2012. That 2012 is really not bad. It just sounded a little bit too rounded off for me. It was just very odd because the 2009 that was based, this just sounded so much better in its CD presentation, but like really better. That just goes to show you, you know, you have to use your ears and keep an open mind. But they all were enjoyable, even the worst of them. Even 1987 was was okay, but leaving that one aside, all the other versions were like very, very pleasant listens, and I'm glad I have them in my collection. Do you have a favorite version of Rubber Soul? What do you recommend? Leave a comment. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching. Go Beatles, right? You know, the Beatles is funny. You listen to an album like 6 or 7 times in a row over the course of 2 days. You would think you'd get sick of it. That's not the case with the Beatles. The Beatles are special that way. Like they bear up to repeated listenings. I would have to say, like, I love all the Beatles catalog, but probably my favorite period is the middle years. You know, Yesterday and Today, Rubber Soul, Revolver, those albums, peak Beatles, the songwriting. Wow, I mean, wow. Like, you just look at, you know, look at the UK song listing, like Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, You Won't See Me, Nowhere Man, Think for Yourself, The Word, and Michelle. All of side one, they're stone cold classics, like every song. And then side two, What Goes On, is the Ringo song, which they left off the Capitol version, sadly. That's a nice sing along. Okay, maybe it's not like a stone cold classic, but it's really fun, and it's fun to sing along with it. And then Girl, I'm Looking Through You, In My Life. Wait, great song. If I Needed Someone, like a fantastic George song. And then Run for Your Life, which has like somewhat questionable lyrics, but boy, is it catchy. You know, what a great album. Like, the songwriting is like, they're maturing as songwriters. Like, the harmonies on the vocals, like there's a little bit of like the old way that they did things, but they're pointing towards the new way. I love Rubber Soul. It's such a great album. Rubber Soul and Revolver are just the best. You gotta love them. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little deep dive shootout. They're all good, but those are sort of my favorite listens after doing these comparisons. Thanks for watching. Bye.